I'm with you.
This is Rockin' with J-Man. Is with Steve Luongo. So how are you doing, man?
I'm good, Jam man. How are you doing?
Good, man. Just really enjoying life, talking to you.
Yeah, that's a good habit to get into because it's there to be enjoyed. So, man, I see you are totally rocked out with the pictures. Very
Yeah,
nice.
my dad took these.
Your dad did.
Uh-huh.
That's him calling me now. He wants photo credit. It's okay. Sorry. Your dad's obviously a very good guitar photographer.
Thank
That's
you.
Tell me who everybody is because I'm not getting that clearly.
Marilyn Manson, Tom Petty, Kiss lead singer of Guns N' Roses, Billy Idol, Linkin Park, Tom Petty, Bob Singer.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool. So obviously he was in the pit for all those shows with his gear.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a great shot of Tom Petty. In fact, from here, it looks almost like John Entwistle. But I looked and I saw it was a guitar, so I decided to hold my tongue. But it's only because of the connection. So, what can I tell you, my friend?
So let's get it right into it and talk about this new release, Rarities OXHUMED.
Rarities OXHUMED. Well, I'm sure, as you know, John Entwistle was the ox, right?
Yeah.
And when we decided to quote unquote dig up some old tracks, his son thought that we should call the album Exhumed, right? Because we're exhuming his old stuff, but it's the ox, so we do a little play on words there. And the truth about this record is it's driven by the need of the fans to hear more Entwistle. Unfortunately, there's not going to be any newer, new stuff because that's just the way life works. But I have things that no one has ever heard, and I don't think that they'll mind hearing it in whatever state it exists in because I think they'd rather have it than not have it. So that was basically what drove me to do this after all this time. I have the material, and it was about time to share it with John's fans because he loved his fans. That was the most important thing to him.
So this is the first release since John Entwistle's passing. Is that correct?
Yes, we did an album. We did two albums when he was alive, and then I did a deluxe version of the live album, Left for Live Deluxe, after he passed. But this is really the um, first release since he passed.
So this is remixes, live recordings, and unreleased tracks, right?
Well, what it is, I mean, what's on there? It is some of it is remastered, some of it because we did. And I'd be interesting to get your take on this. There was a show on, kids show on 25 years ago, just slightly before your time, a little bit. And it was called Vampires, VAN-PIRES. And we were tapped on to do the music for that show. So now, all good rock and roll isn't always the most politically correct, that we talk about things like girlfriends and boyfriends and love and fighting and whatever. And you can't do any of that stuff on a kid's show. You can't talk about violence, you can't talk about weapons, and rightly so. So the songs that are on this record that were recorded in the studio were versions that we couldn't use because of the restrictions on the lyrics. So these are either alternate versions or different mixes. There are different performances on them. In any event, they've never been heard in this state before. So that's what those are doing on there. And then the two tracks that are marked as demos were demos that John and I wrote we were submitting songs to the Who. They were about to do another album, and it was suggested that we write some material, and we wrote, quite a few songs. But those two were the two that John thought, when you do a demo, you're presenting an idea to somebody, and you're hoping that they can imagine themselves inside that idea, right, or a part of that idea. So the tracks that you would turn in are not really the best, most bombastic, overproduced tracks. You just want to give the person an idea of what you're suggesting so that they can see themselves in it. And but there was no way that either of these songs was going to ever be heard, and I know the fans would understand John's direction in it, what he was trying to accomplish or what he was trying to say musically. So I put those on there. And then there are just live tracks from the last shows, some of the last shows we ever did, just purely for the romantic value, I suppose, if you know what I mean.
So who came up with the idea of releasing this after all this time?
Well, the as I said, it was the fans have been, asking, respectfully asking, is there anything that we haven't heard? Is there going to be any new shows? Are there any new songs? Anything that was unreleased? Obviously, we're not going to record anything new, but there is the opportunity to finish some of the things that we started. Now, when I say that, John had very clear direction as far as his music was concerned. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew where it was going. So a lot of the things that I have in my archive that are incomplete, they're almost complete. So all I would have to do is complete them in one way or the other, and then I'd be able to share them. So the reason for this, like I said, is the fans have wanted to hear something new or something different. I have to be careful about the word new, but something that they haven't heard before. And we recorded a lot. We recorded almost every live show we ever did. So I have those. That's a lot. And then I have outtakes and demos that we were doing and things that we had started writing or things that we shared. So there's plenty of stuff to draw from. It's just was kind of choosing the right thing for the first volume. But here we are.
Now, did it bring up a lot of memories when hearing these songs again?
Yes. Yes, especially because normally when I would hear the studio tracks, I would hear them in a studio. It's I don't it's not, I don't like have it in my car or whatever, on my player. But I hear it every once in a while, and yeah, it does kick back. You can't help but think back to that period. It was so much fun, and it was very fruitful. We accomplished a lot in the years that we worked together. We did quite a lot of stuff, and we created a lot of content and ideas. The idea for us going forward was we thought that we would maybe start doing soundtracks for film. We did the soundtrack for that TV show, and we were hoping to do more of that, in addition to whatever touring we were going to do. So we had plans, musical plans, and we laid a lot of them out. So we'll see where it goes. That's kind of how it got started. And of course, meeting the guys at Deco Entertainment, I do a live stream during the week, and my showrunner got Charlie Calv, who's the keyboard player for Angel, to be on the show. And I met Charlie, and come to find out, he's part of Deco Entertainment / Warner Brothers / whatever. And it's been 20 years since John moved on. So I figured it was about time. It's everything just lined up. So that's right time, right place, right people.
Are there more tracks put away for another album?
Yes, I do. I have, depending on the one thing that you don't want to do in a situation like this, when you're nobody has any of the current. Nobody has more of the current recordings than I do. I produced them with John, and I have a massive archive. It's not all you. I wouldn't want to just throw stuff out there. I would be very careful about what I picked, but luckily I have enough material to pick from and enough resources that I will be able to do another album at least as good as this one and hopefully better with some of the things that because we always want to do better the next time if we can.
Pretty crazy that entire songs were written and produced and recorded just to be shelved for years.
Well, you'd be surprised how many people that happens to. I mean, there are people that guys that go for record deals and they spend their life trying to write all these songs and they record them and then they're owned by the record company and they never come out and you have to wait, you know, to get them back. It's no matter what, whether it's somebody's material that they left behind, like John, or whether it's somebody who just can't get their material out there. It's tough to watch anything artistic sit on a shelf.
It's pretty cool for fans to finally hear it.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. I've been getting some real nice compliments on the record, and we wanted it. See, the funny thing about making a record like this is there are three completely different mediums within the 13 songs. There are the studio tracks. Studio tracks are usually clean and all sound really good. Then there are the demos, which are just song ideas of a song to represent it to somebody else. And then there are the live tracks, which again is a different medium to record in. So it's hard to get all those things to live together properly on one record, but we did it, I think.
Do you think John would be happy to finally get these tracks out, or did he not like them and that's why they weren't released when he was alive?
Oh no, I the only reason, well, like I said, the reason that they weren't released when he was alive is because we had to rewrite them for the TV show for Vampires. And you should check that out. I think you can see episodes on YouTube. I'd be interested to know what you think of it, because it's not really from your time. It's kind of old. It's between my time and your time. So it'd be fun to just see what you thought of it and thought of the music. But no, John was, he just wanted to keep playing, keep writing, keep recording, keep performing, and keep growing. The one thing that I can say about John Entwistle in its entirety is he was growing musically and artistically until the last day of his life. He was constantly expanding the possibilities of gear on stage in the recording studio. He was always experimenting, always pushing the envelope. So, I think because he would know that I don't want to get caught in the past. I think he would be glad that the fans are getting to hear him play again. Nobody wants to have their voice silenced when it could be out there, communicating with people that love it.
So these tracks were kind of like a musical time capsule then. Let's record all these extra tracks and then store them for future generations.
Well, I mean, there was never, when you record a record, no matter what it is, if you're lucky enough to have the luxury of recording multiple tracks, you may record a song 2, 3, 4 times before you settle on the version that you like, the best performance, the best whatever. And then you carry on recording from there. So imagine, if you will, that there are 3 different versions of a song before we decided, hey, yeah, that's the one. So you've got 2 other takes or performances that are going to be slightly different. Maybe they're a little faster. Maybe they're, you played something you didn't play in the 4th one or the 2nd one. And so that's what this is. It's not that any of this stuff, I should correct myself. I think, to answer your question, John would be thrilled that the song "I Wouldn't Sleep with You" is getting attention. Do you need to get that?
No, no, no.
Okay, I'll hit that again for you. I know John would be thrilled that the song "I Wouldn't Sleep with You" was now out there for people to hear. He wrote it for people to hear. He wrote it for people to enjoy. It's, it's very John.
You and John first hook up.
We were introduced at a trade show, like the car show or the boat show or any of that kind of stuff. There's a one for music called NAMM, NAMM. I think it's the National Association of Music Merchants, and they have they have two massive conventions. One on the East Coast, and the biggest one is in January in Anaheim, and all of the artists, John or any of the guys that that play instruments, go to support the companies that they endorse. Like Eddie Van Halen would go for Kramer, or whoever. They come to support the company. It's a big deal. So I was at one of those, and someone knew that John was coming, and knew John and knew me and knew the band that I was playing with at the time, and that we would all get along. And we were introduced, 2 o'clock in the afternoon out in front of McCormick Place, which is where the NAMM show was, the summer '87 show. And that's how it started.
That
Now
was.
the trick is,
Oh,
the
sorry.
trick is how it continued. I said to him, "Want to jam?" And he said, "Anytime," which, as you can tell by my shy and retiring nature, I went onto the floor of NAMM and got us the premier spot in the biggest jam of the whole weekend. So that's how it continued.
That's awesome, man.
Thanks.
Now, originally it was the John Entwistle project, which later became the band, right?
Well, what it goes back farther than that. From my time, I started in '87 in Chicago, like we said, and I was in a band called Rat Race Choir. And one thing led to another, and we decided, because the Who wasn't playing and John wanted to get out and play, and he's not, he just wants to play. So we wound up doing something called the K Rock and Roll Up Your Sleeve blood drive in November of '87. And we decided to do some other tour dates. So our singer in the band was the bass player. So John just played the bass because we played all the songs, and the singer just sang the songs. And we did a handful of dates like that. And it was a lot of fun. So that was John Entwistle and Rat Race Choir. Then John asked me to join his band and partner up in trying to get it out on the road. And that band was originally called The Rock, but I didn't think anybody would, if you're a new band and nobody knows your name and nobody knows what you're doing and you don't have a release out, it's a good idea to put something on the marquee that they're going to recognize. So I said we should call it the John Entwistle Band, because all they're going to do is write The Rock featuring John Entwistle of The Who. So that's where that whole thing started. And then we did, over the years, we did some gigs with Rat Race again, and we did some other things and recording stuff. And finally in '95, we decided to, stay serious about the John Entwistle Band, and we recorded albums and did tours, and that was the progression.
Why the name and the lineup change?
Sorry, say again.
Why the name and the lineup change?
Oh, the names in the lineup. Well, you got to realize that when you're in a band as big as the Who, or any of the guys behind you, Tom Petty or any of those people, Billy Idol, those big bands tour, they tour for a season or maybe 8 months or whatever it is, and then they stop. The tour ends. Well, if you're a musician in that band and you're not necessarily a partner in that band, you're going to have to keep working. You can't just wait for them to go again. So in the case of our first keyboard player, Alan St. John, he got an offer to play, in something that he really couldn't turn down, which made us have to look for someone else. And then the same thing happened again. And because when you're not out, when you're John Entwistle and you're playing with the Who, it doesn't really matter how much what you do with your off time. But when you're, a keyboard player, guitar player, um, you've got to keep working. And that's, sort of the sacrifice. It's hard to be in somebody's other band and stay, have it be your first band. Even when John would go to play with the Who, I would go and tour with Leslie West from Mountain. So we all have to work, and that's really the reason mostly is availability and that kind of thing.
Now, was the Who upset over the side project because it took away the main focus from him?
Um, no, I don't think we took anything away from the Who. I think if anything, if we were responsible for anything, maybe they saw how much we were enjoying ourselves out there, and in '89 they decided to come back, and they've been back ever since. I don't know, but I don't think we ever threatened them in any way. I mean, that's the Who, that's like that's an institution. I think, and we always did things. John always made sure that everything was done fairly, and when I say that, I mean when we were going to do a tour, he would tell them way in advance. And it wasn't like, oh, sorry, I can't do it, I'm playing. The only time that happened was when we had a tour booked in 2001. And then the Who were invited to do the 9/11 show at Madison Square Garden. We were already booked. And we were already doing a fundraiser. And John said, I'll do the Madison Square Garden thing, but I've already got my shows booked, so I have to do that. So the Who went on and played at the 9/11 show, and John and I hopped into a car and went uptown to BB King's and played again.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, man, he deserved the he deserved the accolades that he got and more. And if I guess to come full circle, the guy was one of a kind. I mean, he was one of a kind. You're not going to get another one of those. You'll get a lot of guys who were inspired by that, but he's at the root of it. You know what I mean? He started this sound and this technique of playing way before anybody ever dreamed of doing it. He was the absolute pioneer. So for me to be able to share that a little bit with the people that appreciate it, namely the fans, got to do it.
Now, did John ever throw your name out there to be like a member of the Who or at least a touring drummer?
Um, you know, he advised me. I'll tell you a quick story. When we were touring in '88, he told me that they were going to tour in '89, and he didn't know who was going to play drums yet. They didn't know, and I said, I'm not thinking. How do I phrase this properly? I wasn't going to ask John, "Hey man, can you get me in the band?" That'd be the worst thing you can do. So I said, well, I'd like to see if I can work that out for myself. Would you mind? And he said, no, but I don't think you want to do that gig. He said, but go, if you want to write a letter, because, obviously we all knew each other. And I wrote a letter saying whatever it said, and I didn't get a response. And that was that. Then you have to understand something, that the Who, in the very beginning of their career, when they were playing just three-piece and a singer live at Leeds era, all the jamming and all that stuff with Keith Moon, that was a very specific time and a very specific chemistry within that band. Now, if I was to play my style, my aggressive style of playing, which certainly is influenced by any of the drummers that came before me, Keith Moon included, it wouldn't fit with the way the band is now. It's not the same band. Roger and Pete will tell you the same. It's a much more tuned show, and it's a very good show. And in fact, the drummer that they wound up with, um, they were lucky to wind up with, is Zach Starkey, who is the son of Ringo Starr. And Keith Moon was the one who gave Zach Starkey lessons when he was a little kid. So Zach is now the drummer of The Who. And I don't think, myself included, that anybody could serve that band the way it is now, what they play now, better than Zach Starkey. So
But you guys are all friends, even asked to read his eulogy, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to. You can't let things get in your way. You everybody deals with things differently, but you get to a certain point in your life where how you respond to things are a choice. Do you want to be upset? You can be upset. Do you want to be friendly and just do it that way? Over time, you learn that it's better to take the high road and try to get along with everybody. So there was never a conflict there. They were always very generous to us with regard to being flexible of what we were going to do. They could have very easily said, John, you're going to have to cancel your show. Not that he would have. We're playing Madison Square Garden, but they didn't. They bent over backwards to accommodate John and his schedule. They offered to pay for the whole tour. John said, no, I don't want that. We want, he wants to play. You can't substitute that. And lucky that we did, because it was the last tour that we ever did.
What is your favorite memory of John?
My favorite memories?
Yes.
Um, we could be very silly. And when you are older, silliness is rare. And I remember you remember fax machines, or what they are, fax machines?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what a fax machine.
Okay. Well, that was the only way of communicating long distance, at that, before social media. So we would send faxes of jokes back and forth. And it was, he would write these big long things with like how you can tell if you're going deaf or whatever. And then he'd write like 20 things that were just hysterical, which would make me write 20 more things. And if my favorite memory was how easy it was to be friends with John, and how easy it was to play with him. And, it was very comfortable friendship. So that's my fondest memories. Besides, playing kick-ass rock and roll with the best bass player on the planet.
I heard he was into collecting bizarre things. Was that true?
Oh, yes, it was very true. He collected, it wasn't all bizarre. I mean, some of the things, he had things around his house that were there just to either shock you or make you laugh. He had a Hunchback of Notre Dame hanging from a rope in the middle of, I don't even know I guess it would be the foyer. And he was anatomically correct, which means if you pulled his pants down, you saw stuff you probably didn't want to see. But that's hanging on a rope like this thick in the middle of this grand entranceway. There was another thing that he had that was, it was called Leatherman. And it was the bust, just, no arms, no head, but a red leather. It was made out of red leather, and it looked like muscles, but it had a zipper, and it looked like you could unzip the muscles. That's okay, little eccentric there, right? But then he had a collection of teapots, which was just, he just had every one I think you could ever get your hands on. And he had like series of collector plates, and he had weapons, medieval weapons, broadswords, 1863, what do you call Civil War weapons, guns and rifles, and had suits of armor. And yeah, he collected, he liked that. You got to realize and I said to him once, we were making a record and I was sitting in the kitchen, and the kitchen is kind of, no matter where you are in the in the house. The kitchen is kind of the center gathering place before you go anywhere else. And every day I would get in there a little earlier than him. I'd sit down, and there was television in there, of course, that was never turned off. It was on 24 hours a day until it stopped working, and then it was replaced. Just a fact for you, in the kitchen. And I went to turn it off one day, and he went, "No, no." Okay. So anyway, I'm sitting in the kitchen, and every day a truck would pull up, yellow truck, white truck, red truck, and unload cartons, boxes, all kinds of different things, like looked like an Amazon truck, the back of an Amazon truck, right? So I said to him one day, I said, what are all these boxes? And he said, "Well, I like to stay up late at night." He said, "And I watch the shopping channel and I order things." And he orders things every night. So after a while, things come every day. And he said, "We didn't have much when I was a kid because he was in post-war London. So, that's pretty destitute times." And he said, "And I like getting presents. So that's what I do."
What's the craziest thing you've seen that he had?
The craziest thing that I've seen that he had, craziest like eccentric, insane, or most outrageous?
Eccentric. Eccentric.
Okay. Well, he had Harrods is a very popular store in London, and very expensive, beautiful furniture, everything you can imagine. It's a almost like a one-stop shop for anything: jewelry, clothes, furniture, whatever, right? And so John went to Harrods and bought this gorgeous tufted leather, high back chair with the kind of sides on it. I'm just beautiful. I can't even imagine, what it cost. And he had it brought up to the third floor of his house. Now, the only thing that was up on the third floor were a bunch of haunted rooms and a demo studio. But up on the third floor, that's where this red chair went. And in the red chair sat next to a telephone. There was a little table with a telephone on it. And sitting in the red chair is a cadaver skeleton wired together with his hand on the phone.
I would actually be scared if I saw that.
Well, I'll tell you, John he had a dark sense of humor, but I'll tell you a funny story about it. You know The Simpsons, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the Who were on an episode of The Simpsons, and to say thank you to all the guys in the band, the producers sent them all bowling balls and Simpsons bowling bags, and just swag from the show. And John decided that he was going to get into bowling. He was going to try bowling, which is, I don't even know if that's safe for him to do, but he did it anyway. And what he did was he actually got into it, and he bought this crystal ball, completely clear bowling ball with a skull in the middle of it. Right? So, I mean, it looks like you're holding up a clear bowling ball with a life-size real skull in the middle of it, right? And we're laughing, and we go to Cheltenham to go bowling, and John throws one, I throw one, family comes next to us, they're setting up their stuff, they're putting their balls and shoes where they need to be, and a little girl, 4 or 5 years old, is standing waiting for her ball to come back and the ball return. You know how that happens, right? And out comes John's ball with the skull in it, staring right at her. And she freaked and started crying and ran away. And so, yeah, there's skeletons in John. There's something there. But yeah, it was freaky. But, it was all in good fun. He wasn't, he was crazy, but he wasn't crazy.
How did the parents react with that?
The parents
Yeah.
of the child bowler?
Yeah.
Oh, they laughed. I mean, I'm sure they probably knew who John was. I mean, he was dressed like John in a bowling alley, which is like, and I think they found it funny, and they assured her that it was going to be all right. And it was, I think they took it as a laugh, if I remember.
Do you remember the phone call you got hearing of his passing?
Yes, I do. It was actually prompted by a phone call that I made. Um, I, John was out on the road, and this was the opening night of the first tour, and we were business partners. We had formed a business together, and we were doing things together, and I had to talk to him, right? And I knew no matter what, don't call him before 12 o'clock, which is 3 o'clock my time in New York, in Las Vegas. So I rang up uh, his assistant, and I said, "Listen, I need the answer to something quick. There was a deal that was pending, and so on and so forth." And I said, "It's noon. You gotta wake him up." And he said, "Okay." And the next thing I know, I get a call back, and he said, "Our boy's in trouble. The coroner is on the way." So I remember it very clearly. And I was the only one of all of us that wasn't on the road. I mean, I didn't tour with the Who, and John and I would be home doing business for us for whatever our next tour would be, and so I was the only one that anybody could get to. Um, and it was not it was not that it was unexpected, although it was. I wasn't thinking. I thought we had a lot more time left, but like I said, I was the only one that the news had access to, and I had everybody calling my house, CNN, and I'm on one phone call, and I see my name scrolling across the bottom of CNN. It was surreal to all of a sudden be caught up in that. Our friendship was friendship. It was, it had nothing to do. I mean, we were in a band together, and the band was popular to a point, but it was all of a sudden to be thrust into that was overwhelming, I guess, for lack of a better word. It took me a long time to uh, to accept all that. One of the things about touring is, especially if somebody in your band lives in another country, or across the York, if they're in LA and you're in New York, you're used to not seeing them for long bits of time. You go out for 2, 3, 4 months, and then you may talk every day, but you don't see them. They're home for 6 months, 8 months, or they go out on the road on something else. So there's a part of it that doesn't seem all that strange, but because of that, you kind of keep expecting him to show up, and then you realize he's not gonna. So it was tough. It was tough. And I remember them asking me if he had, I guess the news had leaked out about that it was a heart attack. And it was a heart attack. And they asked me if he had, if I knew of any heart problems. And I did, because the first tour that we did with the new band, I had to take his blood pressure every day because he was diagnosed with high blood pressure. And we had to he needed to take medication for it. He was in his 50s, and we needed to adjust that. But people say a lot of things about that event, and what I'll tell you this: you can have a heart attack anywhere. That you don't just have it because you're partying too much or going too crazy. You have it because of other neglect. And John had 3 major blockages in his arteries, and he would have had the same heart attack in the middle of a bass solo or downstairs on the treadmill. So you got to take care of yourself in every area.
But he went out in true rock star fashion with a groupie and all.
Well, I'll tell you a little story about rock star fashion, my friend. I was recording a record in Woodstock, and John was home in England. The owner of the studio said to me, "I heard that the reason John Entwistle and Keith Moon drink brandy or drank brandy was because they did an experiment with livers to see which alcohol would have the best and worst effect on the livers. Well, I had never heard this story. So I said, well, I'll let you know. I'll talk to him tonight after I get home from the session and I'll ask him. So I said, John, owner of the studio asked me if you and Keith did experiments with livers to decide which is the least harmful alcohol. And he goes, no, 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 no. And the truth story was that they were sitting in a doctor's office and they were reading a medical journal where scientists had performed these experiments, and they determined that brandy was the least harmful of all the alcohol for your liver. And I said, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. I said, I'll tell her that tomorrow. And he goes, no, 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 no. Her story's much better. So, yes, rock star fashion. I think knowing John the way I know him, and knowing him as a friend and knowing him as a human being, besides, all the icon stuff, I think if he could have written it himself, he would have written it that way.
But you guys were best friends, and you even made the documentary film at Oxtail. Sorry about that, man.
That's right. Hit it again. Say it again. Take your time.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, man. Believe that's why there's editing. That's why there's post production.
Oh God.
Go ahead. Get it right. Don't worry. I've been there myself many times. I'll join you.
Okay.
Take your time.
All right, I'm sorry, man.
No, it's cool. Happens.
But you guys were best friends, and you even made the documentary film in Oxtail.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. That film, An Ox's Tale, was named by John, and the reason that we made it was I had run into a filmmaker who was interested in doing something about our band, and there was nothing for our band, to do with our band. We didn't have any product to support with a video. But I got an idea, and I rang John up and I said, look, I have a filmmaker that wants to, come over and do this and that and the other thing. What if and he was about to go out with The Who. I said, what if we did a documentary kind of behind the scenes pic of what it's like, when you're in a band for 40 years or however many years it is, to, gear up, get ready to go back out on the road. What's the prep like? What's the rehearsal like? And so we shot all this interview footage, about 10 hours of it. And, like things do, the financing for the film dried up and it just sat there. So I wound up with 10 hours of us just telling stories and talking back and forth. And then after he passed, somebody approached me about finishing it. And instead of it being a documentary, it was more of a documentary about gearing up. It was a documentary about John's life and his musical life. It was never meant to be a tell-all, any of this. I always thought John was underappreciated by the masses. I mean, the guy was absolutely as good as it gets. You get Mozart, you get Hendrix, you get whoever else, and they dot the history and the musical landscape. So, it just seemed at that point that I could take the footage that I had, and, Pete Townsend cooperated, was very helpful. A lot of guys, Chris Squire, basis of John's day, Roger Glover. There were, a bunch of guys that were in the film, and we finished it after he passed because I wanted people to know, just the same thing as OXHUMED. I wanted people to know more about this guy because he's that important, at least in my opinion, and shared by many other people. He was a cornerstone in music history.
I heard Mike Myers wanted to make a movie about you, about the Who.
Oh yeah, he did want to make it about Keith Moon, I think, but I don't know whatever happened to that. I never heard anything beyond, that he wanted to do it.
Who would play you?
Well, I'm not sure. If he's making a movie about me, I guess we'd have to get Ryan Gosling. But I think if he was making a movie about Keith Moon, um, I wonder who probably could pull that off is Harry Styles.
Harry Styles?
Yeah, he might, him or I think Harry Styles, yeah, could probably pull off a young Keith Moon, and yeah, that would be. I don't know. We'll see what Mike Myers comes up with.
We gotta see.
We got to see.
Well, let's talk about your career more now. Your trademark move was drumming with one hand and both feet while playing in time, along with a toy monkey that held up in front of a microphone with his free hand.
You want to see him?
Yes, please.
You do.
Yes.
All right. I have to get him,
Okay.
but I didn't know we were going to talk about Zippy, or I would have made sure he was with us. Hang on a second. I just got to figure this out. Oh, here he comes. Wait a sec. Come on. See, tech, it happens to everybody, man. Come on. There we go. One sec. Uh-oh, you can hear him.
Oh. Ah. Oh my
Now
god.
this this is the original one. This is um Zippy. I have lots of them. I have dogs and pandas and rabbits and so on and so forth. But the idea of it was just so that you get a clear view. This Zippy used to have a bass drum and a hi hat. He has a hi hat and a snare drum. And when he played, his foot actually moved. I don't know. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that.
So it would do that against the bass drum. And he played a real, I wonder if it, nah, dead as a doornail. And he would play bop, 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 bop. So I would hold him up to a microphone, right? If this was the microphone, I would hold him up like this with one hand, right? The microphone's here, and I would play the rest of the kit. It was a gimmick to play with one hand, because you can, oh, I can do that, and it's fun to do, and it sounds really cool. And I thought, well, girls don't really like drum solos, but they probably would like the stuffed animal. Method to my madness, my friend. So that's that, and it's funny because if you can ever be known for something, anything, if you have a trademark that's yours and you were the only one to do it, no matter what it is, that's not easy to do. And it was actually Rod Morgenstein from the Dixie Dregs and Winger that said, "Man, that's amazing that you did that. That's like guys try to do that forever." So I said, "Oh, okay," to come up with a trademark. So guilty.
So, did you have a special drum set to play with one hand and use your feet?
Did I what? Have a special set? No, no, no. It's just well, no, it's just it's because I have two bass drums. I don't know if I have a picture of it that I can show you real quick. Maybe I can over here. Because I play with two bass drums, it's like having that. So if you put the hand in between it, you can really do some cool stuff. It's not easy to do, but it's a lot of fun to do. And like I said, it was really just, nobody wants to see you put your hand up over your head like this and play with one hand. It's just, if you're gonna play with one hand, you should have a good reason for doing it. And Zippy was a good reason for doing it. So you get to show off and impress the girls at the same time.
Now, did you ever reach out to Rick Allen of Def Leppard when you found out he would continue drumming after he's lost his arm?
No, no, I don't know Rick, but that's first of all, Def Leppard. That's an iconic band as well, and Rick, you lose. It's not quite the same as what I'm talking about playing with one arm, because for me it's a gimmick. I still have both my arms, but Rick had to have a special set designed, and he to the best of my knowledge, I'm not an expert at it, but his hi-hat foot, which would be his left foot, right, became his snare drum foot because he didn't have a snare drum hand. I think it was his left hand, that his left arm, that he lost. So he figured out a way to make all the sounds and play all the parts, just doing it electronically or doing it with triggers. No, I never had the opportunity to talk to him about it, but apparently he did okay because he got back out there, and big props to that band for sticking by their drummer, and that's pretty cool.
You got to give that dude credit for learning how to do that and still play stadiums to this day.
It's yeah. Especially, I mean, for me, the way I play, I could never duplicate the way I play without all of my limbs. But Rick, not that, it's any way, Rick played iconic beats, and he was able to reproduce those by not giving into his handicap, by, exploring the ways around it. And that's just so amazing to me. I mean, that's most guys would dry up and start feeling sorry for themselves, and not Rick Allen, man. He's out there kicking it hard, and bravo.
You have played with some legends, man. Leslie West of the Mountain, Crane Basket, Jack Bruce, Eddie Money, Alan Parsons, and Todd Eugene Hartz and Wilson, Ritchie Blackmore, Mark Farmer, Joe Wash, Billy Squeer. Okay, my bad. Probably messed that last name up.
Squire, no, it's Billy Squire. And the reason, I'll tell you something funny about Billy. Yes, I mean they're all friends, and they're all people that I'm proud to have worked with, and toured with, or played with, or recorded with. But Billy Squire, you know how you spell Squire, Squire, right? That's not how he spells Squire. He spells it ER, which is why you thought it was, maybe pronounced different. But he was so insistent on his name being spelled right, because it was, anybody would, it's an honest mistake. If the guy's name is Billy Squire, how many ways are there to spell Squire? But he had a clause in his contract that if they spelled his name wrong, there was a financial penalty that went along with that. So everybody spelled his name properly with the E before the R.
Oh my gosh. If I ever had an interview with him and I messed up the last name, he would be like, "You are getting sued. Lawyer up, buddy. This is it. This is the day."
Well, yeah, I mean that could happen. I think he'd be cool with it at this point. He's a good guy, Billy. I was just talking to his bass player the other day, and they're recording some stuff. And when you're in this business for your life, any of the guys that you mentioned, the guys from AC/DC or Eddie Money, who's passed now, but they're all, Buck Dharma, it's Mark Farner. Those are all legendary guys, but they're guys that just love to play. That's why I guess they're legendary, and it's fun to be able to kick it with guys like that, because it's all about the playing. It's not about the resume. It's about the notes you play.
And were you basically an AC/DC with their side project Forklift? What was that like?
That was Cliff Williams, the bass player for AC/DC, is a neighbor here in Southwest Florida. Not next door, can I borrow a cup of sugar, but he lives in the same area that I live in. And I moved to Florida 13 days before a major hurricane showed up. And man, let me tell you what, not a lot of things in this world scare me. Weather scares me. If you've ever seen what that, So I'm here for less than 2 weeks. Hurricane comes and it goes, and I survive, and the house survives, and so on and so forth. I said, that's it, hurricane concert. And so we did a hurricane relief concert, and the guys who own K Rock down here, Beasley Broadcasting, asked me, who I could get to play. So I got Mark from Grand Funk Railroad, Joe Lynn Turner, and Buck Dharma from Blue Oyster Cult, and Eddie was there. Eddie Money was there, um, and the owner of the station said, "Well, why don't you call up Cliff Williams because he lives in town." And I didn't know Cliff, but he's the bass player, and I thought, well, okay, that's a good place to start. I rang him up and said, would you play? And he said, yeah, my singer lives up in Sarasota, which is, an hour and a half from here. He's talking about Brian Johnson. So I said, okay. And they came and they played the show, and Cliff and I got friendly because when you find another journalist and you're out there in the world all by yourself and the world is against you, and you find another broadcast journalist to hang out with, you're like, yes, man, let's tell some stories. So it's for us, musicians the same way. Find somebody that's, in your club, you become friendly. And we did over, months of time. And I said to him, if you ever want to jam, because AC/DC hadn't played in years, 6 years, I think it was, since they did the last tour. So you know what, if you ever want to jam, I can have my guitar player fly down here. He's got a room in my house, it's easy. And he said, okay, well, I'll have my singer come down. And, musicians want to play. John Entwistle wants to play. Brian Johnson wants to sing. Cliff Williams wants to play. Mark Farner, Robin Zander, that's what we live for. And so I presented them with an opportunity to play, to just, wasn't about the money. It wasn't about anything other than, than playing. And one thing led to another. We wound up writing some songs together, and we went into the recording studio and we recorded some tracks, and we decided to go out and do some tour dates, which we did. And we had a blast. And right after that, AC/DC got back together, and the boys flew out to Vancouver, and they started making records again. And there you go. That's showbiz. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What is your absolute in your day? And don't give me the journalist answer. Give me the jam man, answer.
Okay.
What is your favorite thing to do? Is it video games? Is it bicycle? Is it skateboard? Is it simulators? What is your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing to do? Probably to do homework. Nah, I'm just kidding with you, man. Seriously? I know you were about to just like, bro, I don't want to talk to you no more, bro. Like, who likes No, but seriously, I really like to hang out with my family and play video games. I have a VR, which I like to play a lot, which is really fun. You have
Yeah.
any of those? Do you have one of those?
I have the gear, but I haven't done it. I love the whole virtual reality and AI thing. I that's amazing to me. The fact that you get to have it this early in your life is so cool. But now, all right. So let me tell you what the reason I asked you that is. People ask me all the time, what's it like to do what you do, right? Be in a rock band and make records or do whatever. And what I tell them is it's like hanging out with my family or playing video games or VR. And when I'm done, somebody comes up and hands me $1,000 and says, make sure you do that again tomorrow. That's what it's like.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Do you ever think you'll ever put out new music with AC/DC again?
Well, I won't. I mean, they're still making records. The stuff that we did was not AC/DC. It actually was called Forklift because my wife overheard a conversation that we were writing songs for Cliff, the bass player, and she thought we said forklift, and we never came up with a name for the band, so we just used that. But I'd love to think that some of the material that we recorded would see the light of day at some point because it's great. I mean, the thing about making music is you can't just throw it out there. If you're going to do it, you have to make sure that it gets heard. And but I think that it won't be AC/DC, but I think that that some of that material will either be on. I have a solo album going to come up of all the things that I've done over the years with different people. So some of it will probably get on there, and you just never know. You just have to, one foot in front of the other and see what comes next.
When Brian was replaced by Axl Rose for that tour. Did you reach out to see if he wanted to make new music with you?
Well, um, when Brian had to leave the tour for medical reasons, he had some things going on. And no, I talked to Brian. I mean, it's tough to talk to people when they're out on the road. It's tough to get in touch with me when I'm touring because you're on such a tight schedule and confined. I remember talking to him when they were gearing up for that tour, and he was concerned about some things. But no, I don't. We never talked about Axel. We never talked about that.
No, I know you did some singing on with the band Torquoise. Did you like being the front man?
Um, that's an interesting question. Not really. When because I'm a well, I did and I didn't. When to sing from behind a drum set, playing aggressively in my style, it's not an easy thing to do. And I love to sing, so I really loved singing, and I love to play drums, but they're not the best things to do at the same time necessarily. But I was happy to do it. I mean, I was glad that I was able to do it. It always struck me strange, although Don Henley was the lead singer and drummer in the Eagles, and Dave Clark was the lead singer and drummer in the Dave Clark Five. So I don't know. I guess maybe it felt strange. I I liked it. It was double-edged sword.
Now, what makes you want to bounce around like from different rock stars to a different project?
Well, our business is a business of opportunities, and the way if you're a lifetime musician, the idea is to keep working. Now, if you're in the Rolling Stones, then you're in one band for 50 years, and that's great. But if you're not in the Rolling Stones, chances are whatever musical situation you're in is going to change. Either there's not going to be work for it, or somebody else is going to need something. So it's really being available and being able to, you know, to answer the call. If somebody says, "Hey, I need somebody to do this," you can do it. You go and do it. And I think, our business it's a business of relationships. It's recommendations, and I had a great experience with this guy and you should try it out. Or in my case, many times it's people that I was friends with that said, "Hey, let's play some music." And we did.
Who was your favorite to work with?
My favorite to work with? Um, that's a tough one. I mean, I liked, it was fun to work in a lot of, I think my favorite to work in would have had to been John Entwistle, because John ticked all the boxes. You got, the greatest musician you could ever imagine playing with, and, availability. And it was just, I would have to say it was John. He was one of a kind. And that was the greatest musical experience of my life, was playing with him. The things that I learned, and the fun that we had, because realize this too: you're on stage for 2 hours, but you're off stage together for 22 hours. Now, I'm assuming, do you go to school, or are you homeschooled? Are you going to classes?
Yeah, I go to school. Yeah, I go to public. No
Okay.
private, I go to public.
Okay. So imagine that after school got out, you had to go home with all those people. It's got to be somebody in that class that you don't want to go home with, right?
Oh,
And I don't throw them under the bus. I'm just making an example for you. And that's what it's like being in a band, because you travel together. You don't necessarily sleep together, but you sleep in the same hotel. You're up at the same time. You're on stage at the same time. You're in the dressing room. You're meeting the people, and it's very much like a classroom of only four. So if you're going to spend all that time with those other three people, they better be people that you enjoy being with and that you get along with. And if you are lucky enough to find that, there's nothing better.
Who was the worst? Got you there, didn't
No, because I have a lot to choose from.
I?
So I have to be careful. Um, and it's funny because the names are just rotating in my head. I think the out and out most difficult person to work with that I ever worked with was Ritchie Blackmore from Deep Purple and Rainbow. And I didn't work with him for all that long. Um, I'm a very type A, certain kind of person, as you probably can tell from our little chat. And Richie is that way too. And if those two things don't mesh, then they clash. So I'm not the kind of person that will lay down and accept behavior because I'm being employed by that person or working with that person. If you're making me feel something, I'm going to express it, and I would expect the same thing from you. So I would say the it's hard to say the worst person because he was an incredibly talented musician and it was a great opportunity. But I think there was a couple of other guys along the way, but I would have to say hour by hour, Richie was consistently the most difficult.
Besides the band with John, did you ever wish you had a permanent home in a band?
Yeah, I always did. I mean, that's what I'm used to. I am used to being in my first band that was a serious band was together for decades, and we got together in 1968, and we stayed together in one form or another up, for almost 30 years, and it was the same thing. Excuse me. It was the same thing with the Entwistle band. I thought we would be in that band together for the rest of our lives in one form or another. Some guys like to be out on the road with different people. They want to come in, do their job, and leave. That's not the way I came up. I came up being part of a band, and so I have that band mentality. And that if you can ever have that, even once, much less twice, it's pretty special.
Now, who are you working with today? Who are you?
With what? I'm sorry.
Who
How
are you?
long left?
Who are you working with these days?
Oh, these days.
Yeah.
Well, I'm one of the projects that I'm doing is I'm trying to see if I can complete a rock opera that John had started years ago. I have a bunch of notes and material. So I've joined forces with a very talented composer named Keith Crane, who is also a drummer too. But it's, because he understands, I have a lot of scored music by John, so he can make sense of a lot of that for me. And we're going to see if there's enough, if there's enough direction to actually finish this rock opera. And then besides that, I do my live stream, rock and roll show and tell, at 7, Eastern Standard Time, weekdays. And I'm working on my solo album, which is all stuff that I've already recorded. What else? There's some stuff going on. I'm actually working on a Broadway presentation too, actually at the same time. I don't know that you would remember Roy Orbison, but I'm sure you've heard the music. I'm sure you've heard Pretty Woman or whatever. And I wanted to put together something called a live documentary. So I found a band with a singer that can sing like Roy, and it's not a look-alike band or an imitate. It's just they play the music, and then the documentary portion of it, the images and the statistics and the narration is shown on the screen between songs. So it's a live documentary, and It's called Roy Orbison Experience, featuring the Vernon Kelton Band. And then I'm working on a one-man show of my own, which will be an off-Broadway kind of thing. Just, hanging out and talking and sharing the experience.
And you
That'll
make
keep me busy for a while.
what?
Hmm?
I'm
I
sorry.
said that'll keep me busy for a while.
And you make custom shirts with Steve Luongo's designs, but they're works of art, right? Made for rich guys.
Yeah, they're made for rich guys. Um, what they are is when I moved to Florida, I have been doing art, visual art, for as long as I've been playing music, probably even longer. I don't remember ever not having a pencil or something in my hand. And I did it for years, and it became a way, like a meditation or a way to relax from stress, because the business can be a little stressful. And when I moved down here, a friend of mine saw some of it, and he said, you should put this in galleries, and you should do this and that and the other thing. And I thought, well, okay, my career has not stopped, but I'm at a spot, transitional spot. I'll try doing that. And one thing led to another, and I had two very successful years as a visual artist. And so I joined the Naples Art Association, and I was entered into a bunch of award shows and different things. And like I said, I had great success. And then the same guy said to me, "You should put this on shirts." So I thought, well, I don't just want to make a T-shirt with a plastic, whatever it is, a rubberized picture of my art. But if I was going to do art on shirts, I would want to do something that no one ever did before. So because it was based on my art, I took, you can imagine laying out a pattern for a shirt. You know how they cut all the different pieces and they sew them together.
Yeah.
Okay. What I did was I had them cut all the pieces out of a big canvas of art so that when they put the shirt together, it still looked like the art, but now it had been transformed into a shirt. And I did them as limited edition prints. They're numbered 1 to 20, 1 to 20 small, 1 to 20 medium, and so on. So there's 100 shirts in each design, 20 in each size, numbered, named, the name of the art, and then it's signed by me. And they were very expensive to make. I made them out of the absolute finest material that I could find. And I had, the inking printing process was very involved. And then there are little details all over. The buttons have my signature etched into them. And it's, it was, like I said, if I was going to do something, I wanted it to do something different. So as far as I know, it's the only fashion line that the entire line is based on the art of a single artist, me.
Have you toured after the pandemic?
No, I haven't played a show since September 9th, 2019. I have been locked down, and it's if there was a reason, a real reason for me to go out and play, I would go out and play. But I'm not, I have so many of these projects to develop and these records to do that I'm not in a hurry to get out there and play. I'm thinking about doing this one man show and some public appearances in New York next year, which I'll let you know. You can come down and say hello. But no, I haven't. And luckily I have a recording studio in my house, so I can play, whenever I want to. But no, I haven't been out and done a show in a very long time, and I do miss it. I'll tell you that.
What's the best venue you've ever played?
The best venue I've ever played. Wow, that's a tough one because the biggest venue you've ever played and the best sounding venue you've ever played and the best performance at a venue that you've ever played, they're all different. Um, I would have to say it was it would have been, there was a place on Long Island that we used to play in the 70s called Speaks. And I think that combined all of the best elements of all the places I've ever played. It was big enough to have thousands of people in it, but it was small enough to really sound good. It was local enough to be able to get there easily, but it was just it. I would have to say Speaks. I just because of all those things. Great crowds, great sound, not too big, not too small, and it was a great time in my life. So that Speaks in Island Park.
What's the worst?
Uh, the Moon Dance in Peekskill. It was it was just a dive bar in every sense of the word. And I don't remember quite how we ended up playing there, but we did. And that was probably as bad as it gets.
What's on your rider?
On my rider,
Yeah.
changed over the years. Now it's Diet Coke, um, some kind of good cookies, uh, deli tray, box of Splenda sweetener. Oh no, I'm sorry. What do I use? I use the green stuff now. Um, oh, I can't even remember what it is.
Caviar?
Stevia.
Oh,
No, stevia. No, stevia. Um, I try. My riders used to be crazy. They used to have cakes and cookies and all of your favorite stuff, and I always used to get a bag of peanut M&Ms because my roadie loved peanut M&Ms, and this way he always had a bag of peanut M&Ms. But yeah, not too out of the ordinary. I like chai tea. So it also depends what's available. But yeah, things in the dressing room. I like to have tea, hot tea, Diet Coke, and I'm pretty easy.
ever had a crazy interaction with a fan?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Um, I had a fan. I didn't really know who it was, but I was being stalked by a fan who wanted to pay somebody to kill me.
Oh,
and,
oh.
and they hid a 38 pistol in the lettuce at a grocery store, and the person that was supposed to pick up the gun told the police about it. The police called me up. That's how I even found out about it. So I would say yes, a crazy female fan that wanted to have me killed by hiding a weapon in the lettuce at a grocery store.
So was it a hitman or an assassin?
No, no, no. It was a biker actually. It was and I have a lot of my friends from that time period were bikers, and they knew who I was, and this person was obviously not in their right mind, and they wanted to do harm for some reason. It's a very scary world out there, and you can't be fearful to walk through it, or you'll just live in fear. But you can never you can never take anything for granted. You really have to, watch out and mind your P's and Q's and see how you move through the world and try to be as safe out there as possible. So it's, the gun violence is way out of control. And it's a scary world out there. So you have to deal with it the best you can.
Did the biker still get arrested or no?
No, the biker didn't get arrested. The biker was the one who actually informed the authorities. Like I said, the biker in question was a fan of mine or of the band's. This is going way back to the '80s, early '80s, and I had no idea about any of it. And I got a call from the Newburgh Police Department, and they said, you know, this and that and the other thing. So no, I don't know that I even saw him again. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know anything that happened. I know that I didn't get shot, and I'm very happy about that.
Hey man, I'm really happy you to get shot too, man. Because you're a
Cool.
pleasure to speak with, man. You're so cool,
Hey
man.
man, this has been a blast, Jam. Man, we got to do it again.
I would love to.
You should come on my show. You know, check it out.
Okay.
You know how to get in touch with me. We'll do the whole email thing. You should come and be a guest on my show on Tuesday nights. It's a blast.
Okay, man. I will gladly do that.
All right, my brother. Well, it's a pleasure to know you. And what is your career goal? You want to be you know, a music journalist? Is that what you know?
Yeah, I want to be a music journalist, but I also want to reach out into the world. I want to go out.
Yeah, it's a big world out there, and you're doing a great job. If you do, remember, if you do what you love for a living, if you make a living doing something that you love, you never work a day in your life. It's kind of like the family and video games thing. So, you know, pursue your joy, and you know, and you'll always get through.
So, what is your favorite memory from playing a show?
My favorite memory from playing a show. Well, I remember doing a show in Grant Park in Chicago, and I was told that there were 1 million people there. Now, it's not a million. There were 1 million people. It was an event, but I don't think the millionth person could really hear what we were playing. But that's a great memory, looking out and seeing people as far as the eye can see. Other memories, another great memory, when I was 14, 13, 14, just starting to play gigs. My brother was older than me by 8 years, and he could go to a place called the Fore and Aft South in White Plains, which was actually the oldest continuing nightclub in the United States. And it was always a dream of mine to play there because my older brother was going there, and you know, I wasn't allowed to go there because I wasn't old enough to drink alcohol, which I don't really care for alcohol anyway, but I wasn't able to go in there and see the bands or see the girls or see the, you know, anything. So that was a dream to play there. And then I finally did. That was one of the first things that I did as a pro, and pretty special moment.
What is your worst memory from playing a show?
Well, there's probably quite a few of those, but I think the worst memory would be we were playing in the Hamptons, you know, the Hamptons at the end of Long Island, where Southampton, where everybody goes. And when we got done with the show, we heard on the news that the son of Sam, the killer, David Berkowitz, was headed out to the Hamptons to kill people in nightclubs. So that could be a worse memory. We were there. I mean, it was who knows what he was going to do. But that was, of course, it wasn't scary until after the fact, but that's like, that's a worst memory.
That has to be terrifying.
Well, yeah, like I said, it was after the fact, but the thought of it that somebody was heading to a place where you were, not specifically for me or for you, but going there, you know, with the intent to inflict harm, that's not so good.
What is next for you?
What?
What is next for you?
Next?
Yes.
Well, immediately I would think lunch. Um, and after that, you know, just I try to schedule my day out to have a little bit of time for everything. I obviously have to work on OXHUMED Volume 2. I have to I have to draw, you know, write the arc of the opera that we're trying to do. I have to do my show every night at 7. Whatever's next for me is it's music or it's video or it's something creative. And I kind of wait for it to tell me what it's going to be. Whatever it is, it'll be fun. That's for sure. Because got to have some fun.
How do my followers follow you?
Well, they can go to my website, steveluongo.com. It's my name. They can search my name. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Insta, on Twitch. I'm pretty easy to find. If you Google my name, you will find me. And like I said, the show is called Rock and Roll Show and Tell. You know about OXHUMED. You can also go to johnentwistle.com, which is where, you can pick up the album and that kind of stuff. I'm easy to find, and I like to be found. So I want to be found.
Do you have any cool merch?
Lyrics?
Merch.
Oh,
Like,
merch. I'm sorry. To turn my hearing. Yeah, actually, we do have some cool merch. There's a booklet that goes along with this record. They did an incredible piece of jewelry. John had a coat of arms for his family, and in the middle was a shield with 3 stars on it. And they made a piece of jewelry to look like the family crest. And for me, my art is out there. The shirts are out there. Shirts are expensive because they're expensive, but my art is pretty accessible. And if you go to steveluongo.com, you'll find it. Or if you just want to follow me on Twitter, Twitter, I'm at Drum Crusher. Instagram, I'm Steve Luongo for real. Twitch, I'm Steve Luongo. Facebook, I'm my fan page is Steve Luongo /Drum Crusher. YouTube, I'm easy to find. I'm there. Like I said, I want to be found.
you gotta hook your boy up with some fresh gear, man. Please, please.
Absolutely.
Thank
No
you,
question.
man. Thank you.
No question. No question. No question. So we're good. This has been a blast, man. Thank you really for having me. And let's really stay in touch. I'll be anxious to see what you do in your career. And let's stay in touch, and we'll have you on the show, and we'll have some fun. It's a good time out here, my friend.
Yeah, yes, it really is. I
All
love
right.
that talk, man. Oh, wait, are you done?
I'm done. Yeah, you done?
I got a couple more. Do you want to do?
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
just got like 4 more fun questions.
That's all right. Only because I have another one of these that I have to do. Let's see. We got time if we get through them. Sure.
Okay. Fun question time. You're on death row and it's time for your final meal. What's on the menu?
Probably. Yeah, that's a good question. It could be sushi. It could be high-end Italian food. Manigot and all that. Yeah, I think I would go for the killer Italian meal. That's what I would go for.
How are you going out? Which way are you going out?
Well, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What execution are you gonna do? What's your way?
On my way out, which
Yeah.
way am I going to snuff it? Yeah, that's a good question. I think only because, if I had to choose, I'm guessing electricity might not be so bad. I don't know that I would enjoy the lethal injection, so I don't know. But, I'm a rock player, so I guess I got to go with electricity.
There also is a fire squad, which is very quick.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Firing squad. But what if they miss? You know what I mean? I don't want to just get wounded. I mean, if you're taking me out, take me out.
I'm pretty sure they like put the gun directly at your head.
No, I think they stand in a line. A bunch of them stand in a line, and one of them doesn't have a bullet. They have a blank, so nobody really knows who killed you. But yeah, listen, I'd prefer to go in my sleep peacefully.
So lethal
And
injection.
yeah, maybe. But I think I still, I mean, I believe being shot, if we're being that morbid, would probably be the quickest. But I'm still going to go for electrocution because if I'm there, I'm supposed to be there, and like I said, I'm a rocker, so you got to go for the charge.
If you could have any superpower, what would you choose?
If I had any superpower, what would I choose? To fly.
What?
Uh, I used to have flying dreams when I was a kid, and it's the most magnificent thing. Just yeah, to fly. That would be my superpower.
Let's say you could choose any song ever written by any band, and you could change that song where you were the one who wrote it and it was your song. What song would it be and why?
Wow, that's a good one. Man, I don't know. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't want to change anybody else's stuff and then call it my own. That would be bizarre. But if I, that's tough. Maybe "Thick as a Brick" by Jethro Tull.
Okay, all right, good one. Good one. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, man. Thank you for being on the show. The next time we talk is at the backstage of one of these shows. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I will still be in touch with you, man.
Hey
Thank you.
man, I'll see you out there. I know you're going to be in the business a long time. I wish you every happiness and every success, and be cool.
Thank you, man. Wish you the
All
best.
right, yeah, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Please.
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. My pleasure.
Take care.